What if everything you knew about Bewitched was a lie? Behind the smiles and magic, the cast endured betrayals, secret romances, and dangerous accidents, all hidden by a strict network agreement. Now, the truth is finally coming out, and everything you're about to hear will shock you. Fact 1. The leading man who died standing up for his scene. Dick York looked like the perfect sitcom husband, calm, funny, dependable. But behind that smile was one of Hollywood's cruelest secrets. He was acting through hell. Years before Bewitched, he'd been filming a Western called They Came to Cordura with Gary Cooper and Rita Hayworth. In one scene, he had to lift what he thought was a light camera rig. Turns out, it wasn't a prop. It was a 180-pound man lying on a truck bed. York lifted, twisted, and the right side of his back ripped open. It felt like everything snapped, he said later. He never recovered. On Bewitched, he lived with agony every single day. The crew had to help him walk. He used painkillers, but they are also their own kind of curse. He got addicted, and it slowly broke him down. One afternoon, filming Daddy Does His Thing, he suddenly collapsed. The cast thought he'd died right there. He called the director from the hospital. "I'm done." That was his last day on Bewitched. Fact 2. The witch who hid her own pregnancy. Everyone remembers Samantha Stevens as the perfect magical housewife. Flawless hair, that sly grin, and a twitch that could fix anything. But here's the secret. Half the time you saw her casting spells, Elizabeth Montgomery was hiding a baby bump. During the first season, she was pregnant, and no one outside that set knew. The studio panicked. The costume department started designing loose dresses, giant handbags, even kitchen counters positioned perfectly to block her belly. Every camera angle was planned. But she wasn't done. By her second pregnancy, the writers gave up trying to hide it and did something bold. They wrote it into the show. That's how Tabitha was born. America's favorite witch child wasn't fiction. She was Elizabeth's real-life daughter growing inside her during filming. By her third pregnancy, they did it again. That's where Adam Stevens came from. Fact 3. The day Bewitched was born in blood. You won't believe this. The very first day of Bewitched's life happened the same day a president died. November 22nd, 1963. The cast and crew were supposed to rehearse the pilot episode. Spirits were high, scripts ready, and Elizabeth Montgomery was stepping into her witch's shoes for the first time. Then the news hit. President John F. Kennedy had been shot in Dallas. Everything stopped. Cameras off. People wept. And for two of them, Elizabeth and her husband, director William Asher, the grief cut deeper. Asher wasn't just some random Hollywood name. He was the man who'd organized JFK's legendary 1962 birthday gala. Yes, that night when Marilyn Monroe sang "Happy Birthday, Mr. President" in that scandalous dress. The Ashers knew Kennedy personally. He wasn't just a headline, he was a friend. Elizabeth reportedly spent hours in silence that day, sitting alone in her dressing room, staring at the wall. Asher later said the set felt haunted from that moment on. When Bewitched finally filmed months later, that sadness never really left. Fact 4. The secret gay icon. Hidden in plain sight. You know that flamboyant, sarcastic uncle who shows up, insults everyone, and somehow steals the scene? That was Uncle Arthur, played by Paul Lynde, and he was decades ahead of his time. In an era when being openly gay could end your career, Paul didn't hide. He just turned it into comedy. He infused Uncle Arthur with his real personality. Everyone loved him, but no one dared to say what they saw. He wasn't written as gay, but his every line dripped with sly, subversive brilliance. He was the kind of man who could insult you, make you laugh, and still have you rooting for him. Here's the wild part. He only appeared in 11 episodes. Yet fans treated him like part of the main cast. People would stop him on the street shouting, "Uncle Arthur," years after the show ended. He later became a star on Hollywood squares, using his razor wit to toss out jokes so layered that half the audience didn't even get them. But the ones who did, the gay fans who had no one like them on TV, they saw him. They understood. Fact 5. The torture behind the magic. Have you ever wondered how Samantha's spells looked so perfect? The floating cups, the vanishing messes, the way the whole house transformed in one blink? Let me tell you, it wasn't magic. It was hell. There was no CGI, no green screen, nothing digital. Every effect you saw was hand-built and physically brutal. Elizabeth Montgomery had to hold her pose, arms raised, smile frozen, while a crew of 10 people sprinted around her, swapping furniture, resetting props, and crawling on the floor out of frame. Sometimes it took 5 minutes, sometimes 20. Her arms would start to shake. Her shoulders burned. She once told an interviewer, "It looked easy, but I was dying inside." Eventually, they built her special crutches, so she could rest her elbows between takes while pretending to levitate a broom or clean a room. And here's the wildest part. They did it hundreds of times a week. Fact 6. The witch's drink wasn't an act. You know those fancy cocktail scenes in Bewitched where everyone sipped martinis and looked impossibly calm? Yeah, they weren't pretending. They were drinking for real. This wasn't method acting. It was 1960s television, where the line between prop and booze didn't exist. When the script said, "Darren pours a drink," the man was pouring actual schnapps or scotch, not colored water. Some actors used those takes as an excuse to loosen up. It made sense. This was an era when you could smoke on planes and drink on set. But the problem? It started showing. There are episodes where you can literally see actors' faces flush mid-scene, their dialogue slipping just slightly. Directors had to schedule drinking scenes early in the day, because by take 4, lines started slurring. Elizabeth Montgomery hated it. She thought it broke the illusion. "We're supposed to act enchanted," she once joked, "not half-drunk." But that was TV then. Raw, messy, and a little bit reckless. Fact 7. The husband who vanished without a word. Imagine watching your favorite show one week, and the next, the lead actor is just different. Same name, same character, completely new face, and no one ever explains it. That's what happened when Bewitched swapped Dick York for Dick Sargent. One Friday, America went to bed with York as Darren Stevens. By the following season, Bloom, he was gone, and Sargent was there like nothing had happened. The show didn't skip a beat. Just a new Darren, new energy, same marriage. Behind the scenes, though, it wasn't magic. It was heartbreak. York had collapsed on set after years of chronic pain and addiction. He called William Asher from his hospital bed and said, "I can't go on." That was it. Sargent, ironically, had been the producer's first choice for Darren years earlier but turned it down. Now he was stepping into a ghost's shoes. Agnes Moorehead hated it. She refused to call him Darren at first. Viewers were confused, and ratings slipped. It was an event that almost caused the movie to fail at one point. Fact 8. The deadly curse that nobody could explain. You ever notice how some shows just seem cursed? Well, Bewitched wasn't just a sitcom. It became a graveyard for its own stars. Let's start with Alice Pierce, the nosy neighbor Gladys Kravitz. She was dying of ovarian cancer from day one, but she never told anyone. She filmed through pain, nausea, and exhaustion, and even shot her final episode weeks before her death. 2 months later, she won an Emmy, but she wasn't alive to hear her name called. Then came Marion Lorne, the sweet, scatterbrained Aunt Clara, dead. Agnes Moorehead, the powerful Endora, claimed radiation from filming The Conqueror decades earlier caused her fatal cancer. The same movie, by the way, Cursed John Wayne, too. And then both Darrens, Dick York and Dick Sargent, gone before their time. York's body broken from a spinal injury, Sargent from cancer in his 60s. Even Elizabeth Montgomery, the face of Bewitched, died at only 62. By the show's 50th anniversary, nearly everyone was gone. Fans called it coincidence. The crew whispered, "The Bewitched curse." Fact 9. The glamour that came from their own closets. Here's the truth nobody tells you. Bewitched looked rich, but it wasn't. The magic, the costumes, the sparkling jewelry, half of it came straight from the actors' own wardrobes. The show's budget was stretched thin, especially in the early seasons. The crew could barely afford props, so the supporting cast had to bring their own clothes. Every Monday morning, actors like Casey Rogers, who played Louise Tate, would show up with suitcases full of dresses and accessories from home. The wardrobe department would sort through them like a thrift store, picking what matched the episode's style. But the most shocking example? Agnes Moorehead, the queen herself, Endora. She refused to wear cheap studio jewelry. Instead, she used her own collection of fine diamonds, including that legendary starburst brooch that glimmered in almost every scene. It was all real. 8.5 carats of diamonds pinned to her chest while she shot sitcom magic on a modest ABC budget. So next time you watch Bewitched and think, wow, the style was incredible, remember, those were the actors dressing themselves. Fact 10. The star who said no to magic and lost everything. Can you imagine being offered the role that would make you immortal and turning it down? That's exactly what happened before Bewitched even began. Before Elizabeth Montgomery ever twitched her famous nose, the show was supposed to star Tammy Grimes, a Broadway sensation who had just won a Tony Award. She was the producer's dream, quirky, confident, with that fairy-like voice that could charm anyone. But Tammy read the script and didn't laugh. She argued. She told the creator, "If she has all this power, why is she wasting it on housework? Why doesn't she fix wars or cure disease?" She wasn't wrong. She just didn't get it. The show wasn't about magic. It was about control. So Tammy said no. And that one no changed television history. Elizabeth Montgomery stepped in, renamed the character from Cassandra to Samantha, and made it her own. Meanwhile, Tammy Grimes's career fizzled. Broadway adored her, but Hollywood moved on. Years later, when asked if she regretted it, she said quietly, "I didn't see what they saw." Fact 11. The day the witch met the cartoons. This one feels surreal. The day Samantha Stevens flew straight into the Flintstones. Most people forget this, but Bewitched's iconic animated opening, Samantha on her broom, nose twitching midair, wasn't made by the show's studio at all. It was created by Hanna-Barbera, the same geniuses behind the Jetsons and Scooby-Doo. In 1965, the Flintstones aired an episode where the animated Stevens couple actually visited Bedrock. Elizabeth Montgomery and Dick York even voiced themselves. It was the first live-action-to-cartoon crossover in TV history, long before Marvel made it cool. And here's the twist. Hanna-Barbera secretly reused Samantha's animation design for other shows later. You can spot her silhouette in the Jetsons crowd scenes, even reused broomstick shots in early Scooby-Doo frames. Fact 12. The witch who worked herself to death. Hollywood loves a good secret, and Alice Pierce carried one straight to her grave. She played the nosy neighbor, Gladys Kravitz, the woman every viewer laughed at for being hysterical. The joke was that she always saw something impossible next door, and no one believed her. What nobody knew was that Alice herself was living that same nightmare. Before filming even began, she was diagnosed with terminal cancer. She told no one. She filmed through chemotherapy, hiding her pain behind those frantic, funny facial expressions. And when her body started to give out, she asked the crew to keep shooting. Her final scene, A short, chaotic bit where Gladys panics at another spell was filmed only weeks before she died. 2 months later, she won an Emmy for it. She never lived to hold it. Fact 13, the spin-off that betrayed everything. You ever see something you love get dragged back from the dead just to make money? That's what happened with Tabitha, the disastrous Bewitched spin-off that broke every rule of storytelling and betrayed the show's legacy. 5 years after Bewitched ended, ABC thought, hey, let's cash in. So they brought back Samantha's daughter, Tabitha Stevens, as a grown woman working at a TV station. Sounds innocent, right? Except they aged her up 15 years overnight. The show ignored the original timeline, flipped the family tree, and rewrote history like fans wouldn't notice. In the original series, Tabitha was the older child, Adam the baby. In the spin-off, suddenly Adam was older, mortal, dull, constantly scolding her for using magic. It was like watching Bewitched through a funhouse mirror. Critics hated it. Fans were furious. Even guest stars from the original, like Dr. Bombay and the Kravitzes, couldn't save it. The show lasted 11 miserable episodes before vanishing without a goodbye. Fact 14. The witch's mansion that never existed. You're not going to like this. The famous Bewitched house. That perfect little slice of suburban magic. It never existed. Every fan remembers that white 2-story house with the green shutters and cozy front porch, the dream of the 1960s American family. But it wasn't real. It was a facade on the Warner Brothers ranch, a hollow shell built for camera angles and illusion. The same street, known as Blondie Street, hosted half of TV suburbia, the Partridge Family, I Dream of Jeannie, even Dennis the Menace. It was all fake. Elizabeth Montgomery joked once, "It's not a home. It's plywood." But decades later, that same plywood became sacred ground for TV fans. And then, in October 2023, Warner Brothers bulldozed it. Every porch, every window, gone. Fans cried online, calling it the death of nostalgia. The internet blew up with before and after photos. That iconic neighborhood replaced by steel and concrete sound stages. That's all for video today. Which of these shocking behind-the-scenes secrets blew your mind the most? Could you ever imagine your favorite magical show hiding so much drama off-screen? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the bell so you won't miss our next deep dive into the wildest TV secrets.